Welcome to part 2 of how to configure a SonicWall firewall step by step. Of course, if you haven't seen part 1, I would advise you start with this one, so go have a look in the description box down below. There is a link to that very first video. So in this second video, we will configure all security services, all those one. The intent of this video is to go through all security services quickly. I've done detailed video on every single most of all the security services. So if you want a detailed video of what is, for instance, IPS, what it does, I also do a demo of running an attack through the firewall with and without IPS. I go through logs. So if you want detailed video that you want to go see in depth what each of those security services are, what they do, why you need them, and often see demos and little things that how to do a different policy for the owner of the business and the different policies for people in the shop, all the bits and bytes. If you want to see those, again, go in the description box down below. I have detailed video for most of the security features. This one is more of the version like it's Friday 4 p.m. I want to go get my kid from school. I don't have time to watch plenty of video and spend hours on this. It's Friday 4 p.m. I have to be gone in 20 minutes. Of course, I wouldn't advise to do configuration of firewall this way, right? 20 minutes is very quick, but at the same time, I understand that reality sometimes is this, right? You may be a SonicWall reseller and you don't have time, unfortunately. There is a rush that something blew up somewhere, a server decided to die and you have to go, but you really need to rush and get at least basic security done for that customer. And I think everybody will agree security of a firewall is not a set and forget thing. So you need to keep going in there and keep fine-tuning your configuration and make it better and better understand the need of your customer and so forth. So, it's at the end, it's not the end of the world if you do 20 minutes of configuration of the firewall and next week you keep digging into it, because to me, any security devices needs to be constantly looked at, to revisit all the access rule you've done, reconsider, do I really need this? So like, oh yeah, that's a temporary policy I've created 3 years ago. Yeah, maybe I should take it off, right? So security is something that needs to be constantly looked at. So second video here, we will do all security services. I'm gonna fly by, so please no complaint in the comment that I'm going too quick and not giving enough details and so forth. This is designed to be a 20-minute overview and just rush through it and get it done so you can go do whatever emergency you have. And if you, again, do want details about a specific feature or a specific security service, again, have a look in the description box down below. I do have links to most security services where I explain them in depth, and I also do run traffic to see how it works and the effect of the firewall, like IPS. I run an IPS attack through the firewall, then turn on IPS, show the logs that the attack have been blocked, and so forth. So if you want this in-depth video, they are in the description box down below. So let's get going and rush through. Okay, so here we do have our TZ670 again. It is right there. And we have it configured just like it was in the previous video, right? We do have the different zone. I'm connected right now on X0 on 192.168.10.1. That's the IP of the firewall. And here we have my WAN. I've set another interface for the shop. And here we have interface 3, which has any third-party access point where VLAN 100 is native bridge Dirac on X0. So people will get an IP in that subnet. I have the VLAN 200, which is connect to the shop X2, sorry. And we have the guest Wi-Fi, which is VLAN 300, which has its own interface. So that's the exact setup we've done in the previous video. Now what we want to do is to turn on all security services. So for that, you go into Policy, Security Services, and we will start with Gateway Antivirus. So like I mentioned, I'm not going to go deep into details. I'll just give you the essential of what you need to get everything to work, and that's pretty much my rule of thumb suggestion, things you can turn on and move on with your weekend, and chances are that customer will not call because of some issues, right? Of course, it may happen, but chances, in my opinion, are quite small. So, one important point, see here, enable gateway antivirus per zone. And the firewall is nice enough to tell you where you need to go to turn on services. So you can either click here, or I'll show you the path to do it yourself. You go into objects, and zones are here. So those are the different zone we have. Those, the first 7 you see you cannot change them, it's grayed out. Those are the default one. And those are the 2 I've created in the previous video. So with SonicWall, you need to turn on security services per zone. So we'll go into LAN. And as you can see, the LAN AV is enabled, IPS is enabled, anti-spyware, and app control is turned on. So we're good to go for this zone. And see, it's kind of nice. It tells you here that AV is turned on, IPS for this zone. And as you can see, the shop is not turned on. So we'll go here, click, 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 click. And then we do have all security services on. Of course, they need to be configured, right? Here we're just saying, yes, stuff going through that interface, please check for AV, check for IPS, and so forth. So I'll hit save. And we'll do the same. Guest Wi-Fi, that's really up to you. I mean, depending of the size of the firewall and the amount of guest people you may have, right? I've seen people running like a football field or something with many access points, but they only have 20 employees. So they have a small TZ like a 370 or 470, but the firewall cannot sustain hundreds and thousands of guest people in the Wi-Fi. So you might be, you know what? The guest Wi-Fi is in a different zone. It has no access whatsoever to my network. So I'm not going to turn on security services. It's their iPhone, it's their laptop, it's guest Wi-Fi, right? They're here to see a football game. I don't care if they catch a virus doing stupid thing on the internet, right? So you may decide to turn those, not turn on security services like AV and IPS to simply remove load on the firewall. So the firewall is not going to do anything in regard to inspection for guest Wi-Fi. It's really up to you. Or you may want to turn it on. One that I would suggest to still turn on is the content filtering, right? If you are into a family business like a eyewear store or a restaurant where kids are present, there are type of website you don't want people to go to using your guest Wi-Fi, right? I'm sure you can name plenty of websites you don't want people to go with kids right next to them. So content filtering is something I would still advise to turn on guest Wi-Fi. So once we've turned on security services here, right? Gateway antivirus, anti-spyware, IPS app control, they are enabled for those zones. Next is to go configure those services. So we'll go back in here, policy, security services, and gateway antivirus. So turn on antivirus and enable inbound inspection. So all traffic coming in my network, inspect it all. And why not outbound? There are different type of firewall on the market, right? I'm sure you can name many vendors. SonicWall is part of the vendors that are designed to be performant with all security services on. If you look at SonicWall datasheet, our performance, to be honest, I don't find our performance impressive with all services off. But if you do want a security devices with security services on, which I believe make total sense, SonicWall is amazingly performant. So don't be shy, turn everything on and try to get this firewall on its knees. You'll be surprised, they're pretty strong. So I've turned on AV on absolutely everything, all traffic inbound, all traffic outbound, and save that. So now all traffic going through the zone we've looked at, right? My zone, that is the LAN and the shop, will be inspected with antivirus. And if we go see network, so the interfaces, into interfaces here, X0 is the LAN. So that is my laptop here on that yellow cable. And then the shop is on X2, and I also have native bridge here for, like I mentioned, any third-party Wi-Fi access point you may have. So X0 and X2 native bridge to those two interface. So everything going through Wi-Fi that will be on VLAN 100 and 200 are actually going to X0 and X2, and I've just turned on antivirus. So every single thing will go through antivirus as long as they come from X2 or X0 or those two VLANs here. And something I like in the options we have here, right? Those are common protocol, right? Inspect all HTTP, FTP, SMTP, POP3, and so forth. Not all firewall have the ability to do CFS net BIOS, so like a map drive for Windows, and not all firewall have the option to simply do TCP stream. So the firewall will scan everything that is TCP. It's not gonna care like, oh, it has to be HTTP or this. Like, no, firewall, SonicWall just doesn't care. As long as it's a TCP protocol, whatever it is, firewall is going to scan it, which is something that is a key differentiator for SonicWall. Then we can click on configure here. I just want to point out a few things. Disable detection of ICAR test virus. So ICAR is not a virus, but the entire industry agreed to flag this file as a virus. So if you want to test the firewall with antivirus downloading that fake virus, you may have to, well, you will have to disable this. So it is disabled by default. So the reason is if you do test with your internal antivirus, it could be annoying that the firewall is blocking that virus. Therefore, you're never able to test the AV you have on your machine, on your laptops and so forth. So just so you know, the firewall will not flag the fake ICAR virus. It's gonna let it go. Your choice to turn this on or off. Here, block file with multiple level of zip and gzip. You may want to turn that on, right? Because it get to me, I believe, suspicious that like, why do you have a zip that contain an A's that contain a tar and so forth. So as the Friday 4 p.m., I would advise to leave this on and maybe turn it on later. Do not scan part with file with high compression. I would personally remove it. I'm like, no, you're gonna scan everything, big boy. You can do it. So I personally disable this. So that's AV. Next, anti-spyware. That one is easy. Turn this on, accept, and prevent all, and like this. So just check everything and call it a day for that feature. IPS. Enable IPS, hit accept. Personally, I go like this. The low priority, if you go see in signature, like ping is in there, and there is others that could be too aggressive to different people. So if you want a one size Friday 4 p.m. type of config, high and medium to block them, that's just fine. And hit accept. Geo-IP, not something I recommend to turn on and move on with your day. Because, there is something called the cloud and, everything is accessible every time, everywhere, and blah, blah, blah. So if something goes south in the Canadian data center, it may go into a US data center, but if the US data center get to be too busy for XYZ service you consume online, like Salesforce or whatever it may be, you may be forwarded to another data center, maybe in Australia. But if you decided to block Australia, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot. So as a one-size-fit-all quick turn-on of services, I personally don't touch Geo-IP, something you may want to turn on later on, and have a look in the description box down below and watch that full video I've done on Geo-IP. Botnet filter, turn this on, hit accept, turn on login as well, accept, and I think we're done. Block, no, that's good, Yep, so that's it. Turn it on, enable login, and hit accept. We're done on Botnet filter. And now moving on to application control. So application control, turn it on, enable logging, sorry. Next, go into signature. We'll do it very simple here. Classic stuff that business want to block is, for instance, peer-to-peer. So what we will do, we'll change view by and show categories. In here, you do have different categories of application, and peer-to-peer is here. So put your mouse here, edit, and block, set it to enable. And of course you do have stuff where you can include and exclude people and things like this, so works great. So just a quick example, one size fit all Friday 4 p.m. runaway type of config. So you do have everything peer-to-peer block, which usually works fine with businesses. And final but not least is content filtering. So we do have content filtering. It is on. One thing I would recommend, well, not recommend, but point out, exclude administrator. So I am currently administrator because I'm logged in as admin in the firewall. So if you're trying to go to a website you expect to be blocked, it is not going to be blocked because you're logged in as the admin. So you would need either to log off from the firewall and try again to go on that adult website, for instance, to get blocked, or just disable this thing. So just so you know, do whatever you want. At least you know what could potentially be the issue. Next, to configure content filtering, you need to go into content filtering rules. And there is one by default. And to do a quick config, we'll keep the one policy that applies to everyone. We'll just click edit. And see here, source zone, that's only LAN. And remember, I add guest Wi-Fi and I also add the shop. So you may want to create other policies or just pick all. So that would include everything. So that's the guest Wi-Fi, the LAN, and my shop as well. So you may want to save this. And here we have the profile and the action. Profile is whatever you do with different website, and here is the action. Like when I say bandwidth management, this is what I want you to do. So we will look at both profile and action in a minute, but here I just change the source to all because I have multiple internal networks. So click on save. Content filtering stuff are into object, and remember we had a profile and a action. Well, they're here. So the profile for bandwidth content filtering here, that's the default one that we have. So we can look at what it is. So see, we do have pornography being blocked, weapon being blocked, adult content blocked, and everything here is blocked. So if there are more that you want to block, go ahead. Of course, there is categories in there about alcohol, drugs, tobacco, and stuff. So you may want to be careful. Maybe you'll have to create exceptions if you want to block everything about alcohol and drugs and so forth. Maybe you'll need to do an exception for your local liquor store, right? And those type of thing. And the same goes for online gambling, right? You may want to block online gambling like casinos and stuff, but maybe the government lottery board, you want to unblock it. For here in Quebec, it's Lotto Quebec. The US have Powerball and others like this, so you may want to unlock those websites so people can see the winning lottery numbers. And here is the place where you could do it. So allow URL, you can create one and you import, you just add the name of the stuff that you don't want to be blocked. Right here you can do with domains. So pretty easy. If you want to know more, I have a video, I think it's over an hour just on content filtering, right? So that's very quick overview. So here, what you want to do, we have different action. Classic block does not need much of an explanation. Allow either. BWM, bandwidth management. So you may want to say everything about the multimedia like YouTube and so forth. You may want to do bandwidth management on this. Confirm is just you're about to access a multimedia website. Are you sure you want to go there? And then the person will be like, yeah, maybe I should, or maybe I shouldn't, right? And passphrase is another one. Like you could say, it's social media, you need a password to get there. So you may wonder, where do I set those things about bandwidth management, confirm and passphrase? Those are into the action here. So here, all we've set is what I want to do with different websites, like weapon, I want to block this, and swimsuit, I want to block it, and so forth. Next, content filtering action. That's the default action here. Edit. When you do block, what do you want as a deny message, right? So if we hit preview, it shows the default deny message you want. And of course, you can change it to whatever you want, right? This is just HTML code. Passphrase. Again, what do you want as a message, right? According to company policy, please input a password, access to this page, blah, blah, blah. So that is the preview. And again, it's HTML code. You do whatever you want in there and you input the password that people will need. Confirm is, again, you're about to access a category of website. I don't remember which one I've picked as an example, but again, that is the preview. And if you believe the above, then you just, the confirm link, sorry. And bandwidth management, you can turn it on here to have a maximum bandwidth and a minimum bandwidth guaranteed for different website. So here I could say I want a minimum bandwidth guaranteed of X amount of megabit or a maximum bandwidth. I will eventually do a video on it, but just want to quickly show where things are because again, that's a Friday 4 p.m. Video. So if I recap content filtering, I was in policy, content filtering, we have 1, and as you can see, I have applied it for all zone. And remember the profile, which was the CFS default profile, and the action was the default action. Those are the 2 we looked at. And of course, if you want to create more policy, you can click on add, give it a name, select that it's maybe just for the shop, and create a profile here where you will select all the stuff you want to be blocked. And the action, you can say create an action and again set the thing we just looked at that will be applied only for the shop. And final but not least, CaptureAPT. So we'll go into settings. CaptureAPT is the sandboxing technology at SonicWall. So just quick overview of what it is. Eventually I'll do a video just on it. But I'm sure you guys all remember the good old standard signature-based antivirus and ransomware being able to go through those AV and just work and do their magic even though there is a good antivirus install. So companies like SonicWall and many others have come up with sandboxing technology where it doesn't care about signature, or all it cares is behavior. So if a file has never been seen by SonicWall, the file will be uploaded at SonicWall to be run in multiple sandbox engine and looked at over 60 antivirus engine as well. So very neat feature, but in terms of settings, there is not much. You turn it on. Then here it's going to inspect. Those are the same setting as the antivirus. So I love a UI when it's simple. It's an amazing feature, dead easy to set up. So you can select which type of file you want to be sent. To me, that's all of them. I like it that way. In the advanced menu, you do have different advanced settings, like file to be excluded, for instance. One that I like, sandboxing is not a result you will get within a fraction of a second, right? If you are the very first one on the planet to see that very specific file, the file will need to go to be inspected and sandbox. It will take seconds, maybe a minute or 2 max usually. What you could do here is, well, while this brand new menu from this restaurant that no one ever seen, I'm the first client on the planet to see that new PDF menu. What do I do? What the firewall is doing while it sends that file to be inspected, right? Allow the file while waiting for a verdict, which might be a small security issue because we haven't analyzed the file yet. We don't know if it's good or bad, but we still allow it. So not the best option, but for Friday afternoon, 4 p.m., that is the best approach because, keep in mind the chance that you are the very first one on the planet to see a file are still kind of small, right? Of course, there are some, like when you go download your bank account statement, that is a PDF. I hope you're the very first one to see this file. There is another option, which I recommend, but that will require an email to, all employees saying, hey, here is what we're doing, expect this, it is normal and so forth, which is to block the download until a verdict is being reached. So most of the time you'll get a sort of a warning in your screen saying, hey, we're looking into this PDF. You're the first one on the planet to actually have clicked on that file. Give us a few seconds. We will look at this file. And once we're done, you'll be able to look at the new menu of that restaurant. So security wise, this is best. Friday 4 p.m. Rush config, I would advise to do this, and that's pretty much what I would advise from the get-go. Further on, right, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, you will turn on and tighten the security. So as a first step, turning on CaptureAPT and leaving the allow is a nice first step. Then down the road, I would suggest you turn this on and, you know, give it a try, see how it goes, warn the employees and so forth. CaptureAPT you can send to servers in the cloud, or you can buy a SonicWall appliance for it. So chances are you don't have one. If you do, well, you'll know. Otherwise, just go with the cloud. That's pretty much it for CaptureAPT. Next feature that I would advise to do eventually, not today, is DPISSL, which is inspection of HTTPS traffic. And one thing I forgot in content filtering. So going back on content filtering, sorry for that, guys. We'll go back in object in our content filtering profile, edit this thing. Remember, this is where we block different categories of website like social media, alcohol, drug, whatever it is. Go into the advanced and turn on HTTPS content filtering. That is important because most, if not all websites nowadays are HTTPS. So if you go on any website and you don't have enabled content filtering with HTTPS here, it will still be allowed as long as it's HTTPS. So that's, again, your quick config that you can do on a Friday 4 p.m. is to turn this on. Later on, what I would advise to do, and this is clearly not something you can turn on a Friday afternoon, is to go with DPISSL. What DPISSL is, and I've done a video on it just for this video, is just for this topic, sorry, is to inspect all HTTPS traffic. So what the firewall will do, it will see, oh, you're going on facebook.com. Facebook is sending its public key for your workstation to be able to decrypt communication from Facebook. The firewall will see that key coming and it's going to be like, oh yeah, thank you, this is mine. So now firewall will be able to decrypt all your inspection, all HTTPS traffic, and inspect it with IPS, antivirus, anti-spyware, application control, and content filtering. So the firewall will actually be the end of that encryption chain. So firewall will receive communication from Facebook. Firewall will be able to decrypt everything, inspect all that traffic, and then re-encrypt that traffic with a self-signed certificate, which of course will lead to different issues. So this is clearly not something to turn on a Friday afternoon. And if you try to do it, I'm guaranteed that you will turn around 5 minutes later, go back in the office because the customer called saying nothing works. So it's clearly not, again, something to turn on and move on with your weekend. So go have a look in the description box down below. I have a link to a video on DPISSL. I believe it is a must because I would say 90% of web traffic is encrypted. And if you don't decrypt it, well, 90% of your web traffic just go through the firewall, just like if there were no security features whatsoever. So something to turn on another day, right? So that's a project. In a few weeks from now, give it a try. You'll say, okay, now I want to turn on DPISSL. Go have a look in the description box down below, find that video and turn on DPISSL. But again, in the meantime, go into object, profile object, find your profile for content filtering, and where we add all the categories, and turn on HTTPS for content filtering. So if you do, for instance, block adult website, you do http://playboy.com, it's going to be blocked. But if someone trying to be smart and say, you know what, I'll do https://playboy.com, then the firewall will still block it, but you will not get a deny message because the firewall cannot jump into the, it cannot issue a reply to you saying this is denied because it cannot decrypt HTTPS. So the firewall will simply drop packet and your browser will eventually just time out. But, you know, users that are smart enough to say, you know what, I'll try to add an S to see if it's blocked. They see it doesn't work, they kind of understand, and they're not going to call IT saying they're trying to access Playboy with HTTPS and it doesn't work, right? So, should be good. And that concludes that quick overview, one size fit all type of thing that works with pretty much every customer I've seen. Again, please go see every single of the video where they are more dedicated on one feature. This is like a start, right? So that fits well with pretty much every customer, but you still need to tighten the security, right? More categories of website maybe to be blocked, more application that you may want to consider blocking. CaptureAPT with the sandboxing, blocking a unknown file while waiting for verdict is something that should be turned on as well. Eventually, some bandwidth management could be something to do. So there's and DPISSL to me is a must, right? So those are things you'll need to do further down the road. But as a quick overview, get things going easily and quickly. I believe this is a great way of doing it. And again, go see each of the video about each security services. It will give you more details. We're going to logs when something is blocked and troubleshoot and show the effect of those features, right? Because here I haven't demoed anything. I just turned them on, turn the services on, and then go get my kid from school, right? So again, that was a quick overview video. I really hope you appreciated that video, and well, see you in the next one.